Last week, a commentator for NBC and MSNBC issued a scathing resignation letter saying that he could no longer work for corporate media networks because of their insane pro-war slant. Okay, here we go again. Isn't this what we've been talking about for years? I remember when you were very young, right out of college, and this is something you always wanted to talk about. You want to talk about what? I remember the discussion. Why are we seeing Boeing, McDonnell Douglas, Raytheon advertisements on MSNBC? Are you going to buy a cruise missile? Are you going to go buy a tank? Are you going to buy a new jet? No. They do it because they're buying the voice of MSNBC. They're buying the voice of NBC and ABC. There's some that are better than others. But there's certainly MSNBC, if you were to roll it all together, MSNBC is the worst of the worst. And they're regarded as the progressive side. They're so pro-war, it's disgusting. Go ahead.
It is. I mean, they're among the networks who, when we were bombing Syria just a year ago, said, well, now Trump is presidential. They were the ones who, 15...
Wait, back up on that. I'll say that again, because...
They allowed the people to come out and say, well, he's presidential now. Now he's killing people overseas.
So he's presidential.
And that's what makes a president in our book. 15 years prior to that is when they fired Phil Donahue. I mean, that was MSNBC firing Phil Donahue because he was the only person in corporate media to speak out against Iraq. That's the origin, basically, of MSNBC at this point. That's when that network really said, this is who we're going to be. We're going to be the DNC with a pro-war face.
Okay, the progressives have now, the DNC progressives, not the general progressive. General progressive understands how the war machine is killing us physically, economically, as far as our culture, they're killing us. You remember, just like I do, because we did the stories, where you would have MSNBC. You'd have all of these pundits. Remember the big map on the floor, and they'd walk around the map and say, oh, today our embedded journalists are going here. Yeah. Well, nobody even asked the question, is all of this stuff about weapons of mass destruction a lie? Nobody asked the question. Joe Scarborough, who you were here when Joe was my law partner, he goes to MSNBC, and of course, before I know it, Joe was fairly reasonable about war. He gets to MSNBC. When he was there, I couldn't even talk to him. It was like talking to a war hawk. Why? Because leadership wants that. Because leadership at MSNBC, understand, never forget, it's part of Microsoft.
Yeah.
Okay? MSNBC is part Microsoft, not just NBC. They get their marching orders from, some people call it, I hate to even use the term deep state. It sounds so conspiratorial. But they get their orders from the weapons industry, because the weapons industry makes a lot of money, and they spend a lot of money advertising.
Well, and Amazon's right up there too. Amazon advertisements, they're now advertising this cloud service, the AWS, I believe it's called, which is what they've been selling to the military for years. They're the number one cloud source for the military.
Well, talk about how important that is. A lot of times viewers don't understand where this is really headed.
Right.
Talk about it.
Most of Amazon's money, because for the longest time, up till just a couple years ago, the actual Amazon website where you can order, shoes or diapers or whatever it is, they were losing money on that. Where they made their money, where they were making the massive profits, was through these secret government contracts people didn't know existed through the Department of Defense, because Amazon was providing all of their networking, all of their clouds, all their computers.
Now I just attacked HuffPost. Let me come to the defense of Raw Story. This speaks really well for Raw Story. Raw Story is a progressive site. I go to it just about every day. I say, well, okay, this is a story I'm doing, so let me see what they have to say. Raw Story took this story about the resignation of this MSNBC, about this NBC news reporter, okay?
He did both. He did
both. You're right. But at any rate, he'd been at it for about 18 years. He's been involved. Right. He is a military advisor. He's a great journalist. If you've read his stuff, it's brilliant. He's always really good on analysis. But this is part of what he said. He said, I find it disturbing that we don't report the failures of generals, the failures of national security leaders. I find it shocking that we essentially condone continued American bombing in Middle East and now in Africa through our ho-hum, terrible reporting. And what is he saying? He goes on. Let me just tell you something. A Raw Story, it's worth going and looking at this story in Raw Story. Raw Story actually prints everything that he had to say.
Right, this massive resignation letter, they had it all there.
Yeah.
And see, part of it too is he's talking about the fact that these networks get so scared to criticize anything with the military because suddenly then you hate the troops, you hate the military, you hate America. That's where it goes. But there is general critiques and criticisms that need to be discussed because yes, when we go over there overseas and we're bombing civilians, we're killing people who are just going about their daily lives, children on a school bus. We can criticize that and not hate the United States or hate the military or the troops or whatever. And this guy, that's what he's saying is we won't call them out when they screw up, and that is a big part of the problem. We give them the platform, they come on our shows, they spew their propaganda, and then they go on with their day, and we don't ever challenge it.
Yeah, as you know, Ed Schultz was a very good personal friend of mine. I used to do the Ed Schultz show on MSNBC as just a contributor, But at any rate, one thing that I would always hear from Ed is that management, Phil Griffin, Andy Lack, the management of the organization was always pushing war. He would feel it in the stories that they would actually chastise him if he didn't go far enough. And so I got to just tell you something. This is an important story. It ought to be a wake-up call for those DNC progressives, the Hillary bots, who can't discern between what the Democratic Party has become and what they used to be. And it used to be that the Democratic Party was anything but a pro-war party. If you see it now, we want to go to war with Russia, we want to go to war with China, we want to go to war with Syria. They are pro-war, and part of the reason is these so progressive corporate media types are promoting war, and rather than these people doing their own analysis and thinking, is this a good idea? Is this really a good idea? Should we really go to war because the Russians caused Hillary to lose the presidential election? Should we go to war with Russia because of that? People with a brain are asking those questions. But the media is pushing it like there's no tomorrow.